Up next this week is The Wolfman, which is not a remake of the 50s version of it, but it is set in sort of a similar setting. It's late 19th century England, which is sort of a good setting for this type of story. And Lawrence Talbot, who's played by Benicio del Toro, was sent away by his father. There's a rift between he and his father, played by Anthony Hopkins, and returns home when he learns that his brother, who was engaged to be married, was apparently attacked by some sort of either a lunatic or a bear, is what the townsfolk think. And of course, it turns out it was a werewolf. So he's eventually bitten by the same werewolf as he's trying to piece together what happened to his brother. And you know, as these stories go, he later succumbs when the moon is full. And you know, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot. Certainly, we've seen the vampire genre expand in unexpected directions. So that, I mean, there's a lot of it's in the werewolf genre. I think is a fertile ground, and I'm a little puzzled why they would take such a well-trod course to tell this kind of story. I mean, you know, there's a lot of different directions they could have gone, and this one feels very derivative of movies that came decades before it.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, I've seen the original Wolfman, and this one, I mean, it follows fairly closely in the way things work in this. One of the most upsetting things about this is that there's the werewolves are almost silly.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when you watch it, it comes off as a kind of silly vibe, almost campier than what it should be. I mean, especially for the dark overtones that you know, encompass most of this movie. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, lineage and fatherhood type of issues.
Yeah.
And you know, it's silly for that reason, and it's also pretty dull for a movie about werewolves.
Yeah. Well, and the special effects. You know, I mean, we've gotten to a point now where you can create virtually anything within a computer, but just because you can make it doesn't mean you should. And still, one of the best werewolf movies I've ever seen is American Werewolf in London, which was all practical effects. This is long before CGI, and those effects, limited though they were way more convincing than this. I mean, and the werewolves, while they're moving, don't really have a sense of weight, and there's a battle at the end between two of them. And it's absolutely ludicrous. And the one thing you can't do is laugh at the special effects.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could have been character driven. I think that's what they were going for. But none of the characters ever get really fleshed out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Talbot has been gone for so long, and then he comes back to see his brother, who he hasn't seen in, you know, several decades. And then he decides to find out what happened. I mean, he hasn't cared about his brother for decades. Why would he say that? And I mean, it doesn't go into any of the reasons why. It's just they're doing it because it fits the story.
Yeah, well, he needs to stick around so he can become a werewolf.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's disappointing. I mean, this is certainly one of the cast certainly has a pedigree, not the least of which is Anthony Hopkins, but yeah, it really, I think, mostly shot in the foot by its own special effects,
yeah, it is.
And that's disappointing, but I'd say skip it.
I agree.
We'll be right back.